So, Original Sin, issue number 7, is going to bring us the second to the end of the Original Sin series. And what we're going to get is a lot of information in a very short amount of time in this comic book. And so, this story is going to go very, very fast. But what we're going to see is this transition between the past and the present. We're going to see a lot of things taking place, and we're going to get a lot of information, especially when it comes to who it was that had shot the Watcher. Now, we're not going to find out who it was that had killed the Watcher, what the fatal injury was to the Watcher. We're simply just going to learn who it was that shot him, and we're going to learn there's a lot more to this story of Original Sin than had initially been brought to us. And what we see as the story progresses is that we're transitioning into the past. We're transitioning into several days into the past. And what we see is that the orb, Dr. Midas, the daughter of Dr. Midas, Exterminatrix, and the Mindless Ones have arrived on the moon. Now again, if you recall our discussion previously in Original Sin, we had talked about how the Mindless Ones were exactly what they sounded like. They were extra-dimensional beings who were mindless. They simply just existed to carry out the will of whoever it is they could curry their favor. And at this point, they haven't been exposed to the eyes of the Watcher, so they haven't developed any kind of abilities. This simply just gives us information as to how it was that the initial explosion of the Watcher's watchtower took place. And what we see is that the purpose of the orb and Dr. Midas and these other individuals being here is that they intend to rob the Watcher of his armament and his arms. Now, what this means in terms of what they intend to do with the various guns and armor that they intend to obtain is something we don't know, but I would go as far as to say that the only real motivation here for Dr. Midas is to expand his empire, given the alien technology that the Watcher has and the fact that there would really be nobody on the planet who would be able to oppose him just because of the power that he would possess. What we also see here is that the orb says they've come here to be reborn. They've come here to, I don't know, presumably evolve or to take the next step in possibly their evolution or become something better than what they are. Exterminatrix replies that she thought they were just here to rob the Watcher, and the orb says that too. And what we see is that as the orb and his forces approach the entrance to the watchtower, the door doesn't immediately open, and Dr. Midas thinks that the orb has brought them here under false pretenses, and of course he gets a little angry because of it, but then we see the door begins to open up. From here, we see that the group immediately takes off towards whatever they consider might be the armory, and they shout out to tell anybody if they find anything that seems like an armory. In addition, we see Exterminatrix saying that the Watcher watches everything, that he sees everything, and so it's important that they move quick because they won't have before long before the Watcher shows up. But then we see almost immediately after they enter the Watcher's watchtower that the Watcher appears. From here, we see the Watcher say that he sees them, and Dr. Midas says to go to Plan B, in which case we see an explosion at the Watcher's watchtower. From here we transition back to the current day, and what we see is some sort of battle taking place on the moon, this presumably being the battle between Nick Fury and the Avengers. We see that the Incredible Hulk has been knocked towards the moon, onto the surface of the moon, and that Luke Cage appears to either be incapacitated or possibly even dead. We also see that Captain America is sending a priority alert saying that the Avengers are requesting any sort of spacefaring assistance because they're in combat on in the Earth's orbit. They're in combat on the moon, and that the target is Nick Fury. Now, with Nick Fury fighting the Avengers, one thing to bear in mind here is that while Nick Fury is able to single-handedly combat all the Avengers and successfully oppose and defeat them, that he's able to do this for several reasons. The first is because he possesses arms and armament that are of alien design, and so he's able to combat the superheroes just on a base physical scale. But also, what we will see as the story progresses is that Nick Fury is in possession of both eyes of the Watcher, and because he has both eyes of the Watcher, he knows all the secrets related to the superheroes, and he's going to use these secrets against them. From here, we transition to Tony Stark attempting to attack Nick Fury. And Tony Stark, of course, asks the question why it is that Nick Fury is so old and whether or not he missed anything. Nick Fury replies by saying that Tony Stark has missed a lot of things over the years, that he couldn't possibly imagine all the things that he's missed, all the things that he doesn't know about. But we see that Nick Fury says that he doesn't miss, in which he shoots Tony Stark and doesn't necessarily incapacitate his armor, but is able to keep him off guard for a moment or two. What we also see here is that the Falcon and Wolverine attempt to oppose Nick Fury. And Nick Fury is able to, for the most part, despite being detained, eventually throw them off. He's able to eliminate them from being able to keep them confined. What we also see him saying, or see Wolverine saying, is that Wolverine and the various superheroes trusted him. And maybe that's where they went wrong, that they put their confidence in him, despite the fact that they didn't know exactly what it was that he was doing at the time or everything that had been going on. What we also see is Black Widow trying to rationalize with Nick Fury, asking Nick Fury to tell them what it is that's going on to help them understand. Nick Fury says he wished that he could, that he wishes there was more time. From here, we see that Captain America intervenes, and Captain America again attempts to rationalize, attempts to speak with Nick Fury and get him to understand that he's crossing this line. He's crossing a line that he can't come back from, that there's still time for him to turn back. There's still time for him to come back from what it is that he's doing, but that if he does cross this line and he stays across it, that this window of opportunity will close. Nick Fury says that he wished he could explain things to Steve Rogers, but that if he did explain to Steve Rogers would hate him more so than anybody else. Steve Rogers replies by saying that he always respected Nick Fury, that again, he doesn't want Nick Fury to cross a line that he can't come back from, especially after everything that they've been through. But Nick Fury says that he crossed that line a long time ago and that he believes he crossed the line for right reasons. And that's what we see going on here. We basically see this conflict between Nick Fury and the Avengers, both of which believe that they're doing the right thing, that they have done the right thing. And with this, much like Civil War, it's up for debate. It's up for a discussion as to whether or not who's right here. Is Nick Fury right because he believes that the that the means are appropriate if the ends are satisfactory? Or is Captain America right here and is saying that there has to be some standard, there has to be some line that superheroes simply just don't cross? What we also see is that Captain America, once he realizes that he can't oppose Nick Fury directly due to the fact that Nick Fury possesses armors with enhanced physical strength, calls on Thor. And we see that Thor arrives to, again, attempt to defeat Nick Fury on his own. Thor says that this will simply take a few moments or so, but what we see as this progresses is that Nick Fury is able to single-handedly hold his own against Thor. But again, this is going to touch on the element of Nick Fury speaking with Thor and using the secrets of various characters against them. But before that happens, we transition back to the satellite, to the space station. And what we see is that Scott Lang and the various other superheroes that Nick Fury had been speaking with before he had retreated to his laboratory are still attempting to open the laboratory door. And what we see is that these superheroes are aware of the conflict that's going on outside. Scott Lang says that they should be helping him and are helping these various individuals. And we see that Emma Frost says they should be trying to get out of here, that if they don't leave, if the other superheroes come back and find them in here, that the superheroes may believe that they were fighting on behalf of Nick Fury. Moon Knight says that they were fighting on behalf of Nick Fury, that is the truth of the matter, and that some individuals may still be working for him. What we also see here is that when Black Panther says this, when Black Panther says that some individuals may still be working for Nick Fury, it appears that he's speaking directly to Bucky Barnes. And Bucky Barnes takes notice of this and says that he's the one that cut off Nick Fury's head, that he's the one that brought Nick Fury's head and revealed to everybody that Nick Fury was a life model decoy. And we also see that Black Panther says that in response to this, that Bucky Barnes was the one who was in possession of the Watcher's Eye, that had previously been held by the Orb. We also see that Bucky Barnes responds to this by saying that maybe Black Panther missed the part where Nick Fury had shocked Bucky Barnes with his walking stick, and that Bucky Barnes had been incapacitated, at which point Nick Fury took the eye. But then we also see that Black Panther responds by saying that Bucky Barnes had blown up Moon Knight's ship. And for the most part, what Black Panther is trying to attempt to establish here is that Bucky Barnes is not really presenting any evidence to indicate that he's not working for Nick Fury, that all his actions up to this point make him appear very guilty. The fact that he had killed Nick Fury but took his eye, the fact that he was in possession of the eye when Nick Fury electrocuted him, and then Nick Fury took the eye, which could very well have been something that was set up between Nick Fury and Bucky Barnes. The fact that Bucky Barnes had blown up Moon Knight's ship, all this evidence points to the fact that Nick Fury may very well be working with Bucky Barnes. What we also see is Bucky Barnes accusing Black Panther, saying that Black Panther is the one who recruited all of them into this investigation in the first place. And that's what's basically going on here, is that everybody is sort of devolving into this kind of situation where they're all accusing one another, where there's so much distrust here that no one knows who's working for Nick Fury or who's not, or if anybody's even working for Nick Fury. They simply don't know the answers to these questions, and because they don't know, they're all very accusatory, they're all very confused, but they're all very unsure of what it is that's taking place. From here we see that Punisher, Gamora, and Rocket Raccoon attempt to leave. They say that they simply just don't want to be here anymore, that there's some better place to be than to listen to all of these superheroes arguing amongst themselves. But then we see that Doctor Strange chimes in, and Doctor Strange says that nobody's going anywhere, that everybody here is together in this, that they're all part of this situation, and that they're all going to decide together what their next course of action is, that regardless of what Nick Fury's reasons were, that they think that Nick Fury, or he argues that Nick Fury is still a mass murderer, and that Nick Fury needs to be taken down for this. We also see that Doctor Strange says that at the end of the day, when the history books come out and people discuss this, that they want to be on the right side of history. And so he asks them who chooses this path, who it is that wants to be on the right side. From here we see that the orb shows up, and the orb asks if he gets a vote here, that because of the fact that the Watcher, or because Nick Fury took possession of the Eye, because Nick Fury had tortured him to gain information about the Eye, that he votes that they kill Nick Fury. We then see that Doctor Strange reacts to the fact that the orb appears to have a vast amount of power here, or at the very least has somehow been modified so that he looks similarly the same, but he has a sort of purplish aura about him. And Doctor Strange asks what it is that Fury did to him. Emma Frost comments by saying she doesn't think that it was Nick Fury, but what we see the orb saying is that he stole all the secrets, that he stole all of the secrets of presumably the Watcher, including the one that he's about to demonstrate, at which point we see him apparently use some vast amount of power or some kind of energy against the superheroes. At this point, we transition back into the past again, and we see that when the villains, the Orb, Dr. Midas, Exterminatrix, and the Mindless Ones had attempted to combat the Watcher in order to rob him, that the Watcher appears to be using the same kind of power against the Mindless Ones. And what this seems to be is the Watcher releasing secrets into individuals, and that appears to be the power of the Watcher, to simply just release secrets to people. That, as we had established in Original Sin issue number 0, when we learned about the backstory of the Watcher, that despite the fact that his race is very old and very technologically advanced, that they're very humanoid, that they can be killed, and so they're not these abstract entities that we had previously been led to believe, that the Watcher does have power, but his power simply seems to be to just release secrets to people, to inform them of things that they were previously unaware of, or maybe to even wake up latent abilities that they previously weren't aware that they had. From here we see the Orb admiring the power that the Watcher has. The Orb is admiring what it is the Watcher is capable of, and he talks about what it would be like to have power like that. In addition, we see Exterminatrix saying that they found the armory and that they should grab everything they can carry and then get out of there. What we also see is that the Orb is, again, completely admired by what it is the Watcher is doing, and he's almost hypnotized in this situation. And he asks the Watcher if he's scared. He simply says, "You're scared, aren't you?" And so we see him take one of the guns from the armory, and he says the Watcher's holding back. The Watcher's holding back because he saw, but then he asks what it was that the Watcher saw, what it was that the Watcher had seen when he had presumably looked upon Dr. Midas, the Orb, Exterminatrix, and the Mindless Ones when they had entered his base, or possibly even before. And then he guesses that the Watcher had seen his death, that the Watcher had seen that he was going to die, but that the Orb had also seen it himself. And at this point, the Orb expresses some kind of pity for the Watcher, but it seems to be more of a morbid, kind of sadistic pity, more so than a genuine empathy related pity. And he says that he can make sure that the Watcher never sees anything again, and so we see that the Orb shoots the Watcher. From here, we transition back to the current time, and what we see is that during this conflict, the Watcher's eyes have somehow left the possession of Nick Fury, and so Spider-Man uses his webbing to capture the eyes and to keep them from floating out into the depths of space. In addition, we see that Spider-Man comments on the fact that the eyes are growing brightly, and that these eyes are glowing in a way that he's not really sure what to do with, that he doesn't know whether this is normal or not. From here, we see that, again, the comment is being made here about what happened the last time that the eyes had gone off, that the secret bomb, so to speak, had been detonated, in which case Spider-Man is talking about how all these various secrets had been revealed to all these superheroes, and that all sorts of crazy things were taking place. In addition, we see Thor continuing his fight against Nick Fury, and that Thor says it is time for Nick Fury to explain himself, that his metal suit is not able to withstand the might of Thor and his hammer. And so what we see is Nick Fury replying by saying that Thor is not going to be able to withstand the power that Nick Fury possesses, that despite Thor's vast strength, that Thor also has secrets just like anybody else. And so we see that Nick Fury, using the eyes of the Watcher, touches back on the Thor and Loki storyline, where he says that Thor has a sister. And he says one last thing. He also says that he sees something else. But before we find out what that is, we see that Thor accuses him. Thor says what it is. He demands to know what it is that Nick Fury is talking about. He demands to know how it is that Nick Fury was able to access the Watcher's secret. And so what we see is that Nick Fury mutters something to Thor. He whispers something. And what it is that he whispers to Thor results in the fact that Thor loses the ability to wield his hammer. Now, what it is that Nick Fury whispers to Thor is something that we don't know at the moment, although I believe I have my speculations, one of which, but again, this is simply just speculation here. At this point, we see that Captain America is standing on a satellite, and he's asking if anybody can see Thor. We see that Thor's hammer has fallen to the ground, along with an unconscious Incredible Hulk. Again, what we also see here is Captain America asking Tony Stark if he sees Thor, if he's able to locate Thor. Tony Stark, Iron Man, says that all he can see here is that Thor is trying to lift his hammer on the moon, that he's trying to pick his hammer up. We then see that Captain America chimes in and is a little confused here. He asks if what Tony Stark said is correct, that Thor is trying to pick up his hammer. From here, we see that Nick Fury approaches Iron Man from behind and issues the override code for Iron Man's suit to force him to return to Earth. We see that Tony Stark doesn't know how it is that Nick Fury knew this, but we see that Tony Stark's suit immediately takes off for the planet Earth, removing Iron Man from the conflict that's taking place on the moon. At this point, we see that Captain America doesn't really know what's going on here. He's asking Tony where he's going, but he's not getting any response from Tony Stark's suit. What we also see here is that Spider-Man is simply just floating out into space. And again, this lends credence to the real place of Spider-Man in the Marvel Comics. And while it's not necessarily a popular opinion, the fact that Spider-Man is simply floating out into space and can do nothing, there's no one that can help him, shy of anybody flying out to grab him and bringing him back, I think is a testament to the fact that in a lot of ways, Spider-Man is part of a group that is way above his league, that for the most part, he can't really maintain with these major spacefaring adventures. From here, we transition back to Captain America, and Captain America again is speaking with Nick Fury, and Captain America here is trying to rationalize once again with Nick Fury, but Nick Fury at this point has laid waste to pretty much all of the Avengers, because at this point we have the Incredible Hulk who is unconscious on the moon, we have Thor who's no longer able to wield his hammer, Iron Man's suit has been sent back to the planet Earth, Spider-Man is floating out into space, and he tells Captain America about how Wolverine had murdered one of his own children, about how Natasha Romanoff is more like Captain America than she is like Nick Fury, and that for some reason or another, this secret, or the secret he had revealed to her, had put her in a place to where she's just simply no longer interested in fighting anymore, that she's no longer capable of fighting. And so, between the power that Nick Fury possesses, given his suit and his armament, and the secrets that he has revealed to various superheroes, all of the Avengers have in effect been defeated. And so what we see is that Nick Fury says to Captain America that he's going to bring an end to this conflict, that years ago he had watched a man die, and that this man had asked him, when he's speaking about Woodrow McCord, about whether or not all of it was worth it, that everything that he had done was worth the result, that the ends had justified the means. And Nick Fury says that he didn't have previously, and that he wished he had said yes. He wished he told him that yes, it was worth it. That sometimes it takes the worst of people to walk the worst of roads in order for the best people to follow and to do the things that can be left behind, to do the things, to make the rational decisions as to whether or not this should still be maintained. And so what we see is Nick Fury saying his goodbyes to Captain America. He says he's very glad that he met him, and he says goodbye. From here we see that Nick Fury turns the comms, turns the communications of his suit off, and sets a course towards the moon. From here we see that Dr. Midas, Exterminatrix, and the Mindless Ones have landed on the moon. They have re-entered the conflict of the original Sin story, and we see that what they're going to do is, in effect, take everything. They're going to do everything they can. At this point, we see that the Incredible Hulk reawakens, but then the Orb uses whatever power he has at his possession, presumably again to use people's secrets against them, to incapacitate the Incredible Hulk once more. And again, we see that Thor is continuing to try to pick up his hammer. At this point, we see the Orb telling us that this is the reason why he's here, that his dreams had led him to this place, that he was meant to be here, and that he's here to see the Watcher's last secret. From here, we transition back to a few days ago again, and we see that Nick Fury has arrived on the Watcher's watchtower after the explosion that had taken place in order to investigate what it is that had gone on. And what we see is that Nick Fury is communicating with one of his life model decoys, saying that that he thought it was a good idea, or he knew it was a good idea to have bugged the place, that he knew it was a good idea to set devices in here to where you could constantly monitor what it is that was going on. But the question that has to be asked here is, did the Watcher allow this to happen? Because if the Watcher sees everything, then the Watcher had to have known that Nick Fury had entered his base and planted bugs in order to keep an eye on him, and the Watcher was simply okay with this, which begs the question, why was this okay with the Watcher, or was it something the Watcher simply just wasn't concerned about? From here, we see that as Nick Fury states that he's going into the watchtowers, or the Watcher's watchtower, that one of his life model decoys asked the question of whether or not it's a good idea. That given his physical condition, the fact that he's not as agile as he used to be, and his past history with the Watcher, as to whether or not it's something that he should do. But what we see is that Nick Fury tells his life model decoy that, or one of his life model decoys, that if he doesn't come back, that if he dies in the watchtower, to contact all the Avengers and to inform them what it is that's been going on all this time, which basically means that he would have his life model decoy communicate to them that he is a life model decoy, that all these life model decoys exist, that they haven't really dealt with the real Nick Fury for quite some time, and that Nick Fury has been traveling around around various dimensions, the universe, and the interior of the planet Earth, doing everything that he had previously admitted to. He tells the life model decoy to simply just reveal to him, to the Avengers, the unseen, to tell them exactly everything that's been going on. And what we see is that when he enters the watchtower, he realizes that there has been some kind of a break-in. He realizes that someone has gone in here and stolen almost all the arms and armament that the Watcher had. But the Watcher at this point is still alive, and he's saying that for the most part, that the Watcher probably did his best to fight these forces off, but that the Watcher wasn't able to stop them on his own. From here, we see that the Watcher takes note of Nick Fury, and Nick Fury is a little shocked to see this. The Watcher, or Nick Fury, correctly guesses that the Watcher says that he didn't simply just do this, that he didn't simply just do this to mock Nick Fury, that he didn't remove one of his eyes to make fun of Nick Fury. He asked what it was that happened here. He asked the Watcher, what is it that's taken place, to tell Nick Fury what it was that he saw. From here, we see that Nick Fury, that we transition back to Nick Fury as he's entering his base, and Nick Fury simply says that even back then, the Watcher must have known what it was that was going to happen. The Watcher must have been aware of what it was that was going to take place, presumably the fact that he was going to die. And Nick Fury says that at least this time, that at least when he enters the Watcher's base, that there's not going to be anybody watching. But what we see, what Marvel reveals to us, is that there are multiple Watchers watching this entire conflict take place, that all these Watchers are monitoring Nick Fury entering the Watcher's base, and that presumably they've been monitoring the conflict the entire time. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end, and what we'll see with issue number 8 is the conclusion to Original Sin, and we will basically have a multitude of questions answered, but with the way the Original Sin event will end, we will have more questions than the questions that we had answered when the entire Original Sin event took place. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. and I will catch you guys later. Peace.